It's 2025, and this year we're getting a brand new Battlefield title, and Vincent Pella is the new lead designer of this upcoming Battlefield. We have 4 studios producing this game, and we have a lot to talk about for what the community wants to see on day 1 launch of Battlefield 2025. We're going straight into it and talk about what are the things that are needed for the game on day 1. Before anything, I want to say we need to see a non-pre-alpha beta to play longer than 3 days. A beta that gives good first impressions of the game, so the Battlefield community wants to get involved with the launch of the new title and feel encouraged to buy EA and DICE's new product. We already were told the developers have been playtesting their new Battlefield extensively the past year now. That being said, we should expect a decent Battlefield beta this year before the title's launch. So to begin with what Battlefield 2025 needs on day 1. Number 1, variety. We need no less than 35 weapons on day 1 and more vehicle options. We know Tim Henderson has been leaking rumors there will be 45 weapons on launch, so that makes me happy to hear. But of course, take it with a pinch of salt, for anything could change last minute before launch. We need way more than 7 maps on day 1, with aesthetic environments and even map events similar to Levolution in Battlefield 4. Perhaps natural disasters like wildfires, maybe even volcanoes. I've seen some concept art that showed a battlefield around an active volcano, which looked very interesting and could fit this new realm of Battlefield. We've seen enough tornadoes, we don't need them anymore. Typhoon or hurricane events may be interesting for the next Battlefield title. I mentioned wildfires because of the confirmed concept art we've seen in the IGN interview with Vince, so that's most likely gonna happen. I do like the rocket launching in Orbital. That was even the best map in 2042. With unique locations, authentic to its time period, it would be nice to see a variety of game modes as well. When Battlefield 2042 first came out, we only seen 3 to 4 game modes at most on day 1, and we were missing Rush to begin with. We only had Conquest, Breakthrough, Team Deathmatch, and I actually can't think of anything else on day 1. A variety of gadgets and equipment would be awesome as well, please. And a large variety of vehicles, please. We missed out on the opportunity having sea vehicles, as they mentioned before Battlefield 2042 even came out. They were going to have naval combat, and that never happened. They must have scrapped it. Number 2, content. We need way more content throughout the lifespan of Battlefield 2025. There should be at least more than 2 maps for each season, if anything 3. But 2 to 3 is a happy medium that we're looking for. Knowing we might be having live service again, having seasonal updates, which is most likely what AAA title business models have been sticking with. We need a lot more weapons to unlock for each season. I'd like to see 4 to 5 personally, where in 2042 we would get 3 to 4 if we're lucky. We need way more vehicles throughout the game's life cycle, new gadgets and equipment throughout each season, and like in Battlefield 4 and 1 when we had assignments for vehicle accessories and attachments, that would be awesome. Ways to personalize our vehicles to our own likings. Keep in mind in this video what I don't touch upon that you'll mention in the comments. I left them out intentionally because those few things I won't mention, I simply didn't see much of an issue from the previous title that needed to be mentioned in this game, because I feel personally the studios behind Battlefield are having a clean slate and starting over again. But please feel free to add anything you think I'm missing here. The biggest thing we all miss dearly, a server browser would go a long way for Battlefield. At this point, that feature is a staple in our beloved gaming franchise. Of course, we had a server browser in 2042, but only limited in Portal, which not many really bothered with anyways, knowing they ended support for Portal shortly before support ending for 2042 in whole. Have a rent-a-server option, but for free of course, like Battlefield 5. That'll be awesome too, because the community's awesome and they love personalizing their own servers with custom map rotations and settings for their server, such as more tickets, shorter respawn time, less health, more vehicles, limited amount of players in each server, and max damage, and they can tweak tick rate with the servers that they create. Battlefield 2042 did great with this in the Battlefield Portal's website to create your passive server, but it wasn't to the extent of what Battlefield 4, 5, and 1 had. Battlefield 5 had a really good server browser with creating your own server, but it wasn't as far as what Battlefield 4 and 1 went to the extent of. That's a feature dearly missed in the franchise, and of course DICE and EA had reasons behind why they didn't have the server browser for 2042. I respect their decision, but it drew the crowd away that have been veterans here with the franchise for so long, it almost took a part of them away. Number 4, this is a big one and challenging to accomplish, but I know DICE has the talent to make this happen. Large-scale all-out warfare. We need scales of sandbox combat that Battlefield 3, 4, and 1 had with their combat experiences. Shit, even Battlefield 5. We need scales of sandbox combat Battlefield 3, 4, 1, and 5 had with their combat experiences that made them feel more akin to what Battlefield is supposed to feel like. That makes this game stand out from the majority out there. The most recent that completed our taste of all-out warfare recently is BattleBit, made by Sergeant Okie Dokie and 2 others. That was the non-Battlefield game that made us Battlefield fans want to see for so long when Battlefield 2042 couldn't do that. Because as the Battlefield community, we are critical, but we also want to see a great Battlefield game. With All Out Warfare, I think about how Battlefield 4 feels when we boot up our favorite server. The moment the round starts, you have all the vehicles to your arsenal. In Battlefield 4, you would select a wide category of weapons with variety to each rifle you use for upcoming battles at hand, and multiple ways to counter your enemy with either weapons on foot or equipment and gadgets to counterattack vehicles to create only in Battlefield moments where you can launch a quad bike or jeep, hell, even tanks into the sky and destroy air vehicles. Have environmental events players can trigger to change the map's atmosphere entirely on a large-scale map, having you adapt to a current change on the maps to keep the enemy at bay. Having moment-to-moment events in Battlefield that make you in awe, wanting to play more, and scream, "This is fucking Battlefield, bro!" This is a franchise where legends are born, creating new only in Battlefield moments even people have created in the recent title. 2042 with sniping and rocketing jets, choppers, and others on foot from the bottom of your jet by flipping your jet, or the most iconic moment in Battlefield history with Stun Gravy's rendezvous he made happen in Battlefield 3. Pony Lion's another great example. He's created so many only Battlefield moments that are so creative. That's what I love about this Battlefield franchise, the amount of creativity that every player can have to create their own experience in this large-scale sandbox. Or like me, where I'm skilled at taking out jets and choppers out of the skies with my rocket launchers, even in tanks. Other moments such as sticking C4 on choppers whilst jumping out of a jet. The list goes on. Another all-out warfare experience is back rages, wiping out the entire team of 32 with one significant flank, pulling out your trusty LMG or C4s, or even triggering in-game events that would kill off half the enemy team and even take out pesky jets and choppers that have been pestering your team. One right move can change the outcome of the game's victory for either team. Bringing in features where you can help your team to keep the push moving forward or the defense tight from the assaulting team. Dynamic battles where you play the same map multiple times, but you have different experiences every time depending on the players taking part of the round you're in. Having crazy moments happen where you don't get in any other game franchise. Large scale maps being broad, wide scaled sandboxes with a variety of combat scenarios where you enter in close quarter shotgun rage inducing combat, scaling to battle battered battlefields, having large scale combat with open range tank to tank on air vehicle all out warfare, making you feel small in a larger war. Say that word 10 times. Immersive War Scenery. When I go with immersive scenery, I'm talking about maps you are playing in where the atmosphere around the battlefield takes you into seeing a larger scale battle in the fictional war you're taking part in. For example, with Dawnbreaker, seeing AAs shooting in the skies and explosives and explosions of cities in flames outside of the battlefield zones. Another one, which is in Battlefield 4's campaign on the 3rd mission where you're on a carrier. You see jets, helicopters, and sea combat, all in a larger scaled battle, making you feel small in a current event at hand. In Battlefield 1's atmosphere, which is the best. Best example is Passchendaele, where you see one side of the map on fire with war going on at afar, then the other in silence due to gas attacks. You get 2 sides of war in one map. Even in the Veiled Nights, where you see machine gun fire and you hear gunfire and screams in the background of the map. You get the point. Battlefield 2042 did a decent job with this, but nowhere close to any previous Battlefield game. The setting for each map will go a long way to bring you into the game's lore and atmosphere and want to be curious about the war around you and what you're taking part in with the Battlefield's theme and story. Number 8. bringing back Battlefield 4, 1, and 5's movement. The movement system in these 3 games were superior. Battlefield 5's movement was on par with going further with the Battlefield formula, making you feel connected to the game and the soldier you're playing as in-game. Battlefield 4 enhanced and improved Battlefield 3's movement system with pulling out a sidearm in the water, pulling your chute faster before fall damage comes to play. Stone Mountain is happy with this change of Battlefield 4. Battlefield 3 and 4 adding dolphin diving into the game, dodging incoming rockets and grenades helped a lot. Sprinting into combat faster but not too fast, due to larger maps of Battlefield 4 of course, helped a long way. Battlefield 1 taking things more slow pace with sprint speeds and player models being a tad bigger or at least more noticeable in combat. Bullet velocities faster than before, adding sliding into the game's franchise. Then going to Battlefield 5, taking it up a notch with how movement works from previous titles, where you can now jump onto your back to stay in the fight after being shell-shocked or gunned down from an incoming Stuka. While on your back, you could twirl onto your side or to your belly and go prone. And having the ability to get on your feet quicker, keeping you in the fight, catching a wall while mid-jump climbing side to side was a new feature in Battlefield that we never had before. Of course, sliding and diving was brought into this game from previous titles. We can never forget that. Your soldier from a third-person perspective, pushing away from collision of walls and rubble around you, making the soldiers even look more immersed in the combat scenario they're in. This game had it all for advanced movement for the Battlefield franchise. 2042 had similar features from Battlefield 5 and previous titles, but they went more to the route of what I say Call of Duty movement is, which is faster, and it wasn't approved by many in the community. The movement felt a lot jankier, felt uncomfortable and unnatural for the player. Number 9, a free-to-play side mode, such as a battle royale, which has been leaked or rumored by Tom Henderson once more will be in the next title, or even a neat extraction mode that isn't dead on arrival would be nice. We'll talk more on the third mode the teams are bringing us for the next Battlefield game in another video. Number 10. This is a hard one for DICE, knowing near every game at launch has issues with this, probably due to the Frostbite engine of course. Knowing the game's engine is 90% of the time the leading issue for game-breaking issues, but we would like to have 0 bugs on day 1. This is a very challenging one for DICE, I know. Battlefield 1 was the only game in the franchise that didn't have major bugs and game-breaking issues out of every game in the entire franchise. Battlefield 4 had it pretty bad with game-breaking issues on day 1, not to mention the massive issue with netcode. Thanks to DICE LA, which is now Ripple Effect, they improved the netcode and even made game-changing higher tick rate servers to netcode that became far superior beyond any game to date, all the way up to 120 Hz. But the main tick rate for Battlefield with the 64 players is 60 Hz. 2042 brought it back down to 30 and 20 Hz for 128 players. If you play 64, it was around 50 to 60 Hz. It was never keen to what Battlefield 1 and 4 had. Battlefield 2042 had the worst when it comes to game-breaking bugs and glitches and issues throughout its entire lifespan. Many of them were fixed, but it took them well over 7 to 8 months to recover from that, if not a whole year. So with the developers having a long time playtesting the game, with having more people even playtesting, now should help with this, along with having alphas and betas for us to give them feedback on issues and improvements they made after all the playtesting they've talked about now. Let's see how the game turns out on launch. Number 11, consistency. Having consistent post-launch content after the fact with larger variety of maps, weapons, and vehicles that we sadly got used to from Battlefield 5 and 2042, with only having 1 map per season update, and nearly 3 guns, 4 at most if we were lucky, and maybe 1 or 2 vehicles per season. There was not much to offer for Battlefield 2042 seasonal content. We don't want to be dry for too long where the community starts getting tired of the same old maps and weapons for too long without new content. Battlefield 1 even suffered with being dry of content the first 6 to 8 months of the game's launch, which they eventually made up for with having 6 maps and 10 to 12 assignments with every DLC. Most were new maps and variants, even vehicles and melee weapons and gadgets, new dog tags, even the Phantom Project when new Easter eggs came back. I'll touch up more on Battlefield 2042's dry content issues throughout the game's live service and support in another video. But if we continue non-stop consistent updates and seasonal content throughout Battlefield 2025's life cycle, players will keep coming back, if not stay the whole time, because of what you brought to the table on day one keeps us coming back wanting to play every day before and after content drops, simply from how the game feels and plays. This is a time where you have one up on all your AAA competition, for Halo is on a down low with everything there, and Call of Duty with Black Ops 6 has been even dry on content recently, having major issues with the game. This is your time, DICE, to prove to us your talent. I know we won't get the spoiled treatment we had from Battlefield 1 with having 6 maps spread out through the Times DLC. If we did, we would be very happy and thankful. But 3 to 4 maps each season and throughout will be awesome. Number 12. This is unnecessary, but I know DICE will always do it. And this is an extra I just wanted to bring in here. It's not a specific category or anything, but it's DICE and they're very known for this, and it's awesome. And it's a great thing that keeps us coming back, wanting to discover more from the game, and that's Easter eggs. It would be cool if they brought back the Phantom Project from Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1. Battlefield 4 had an amazing Easter egg hunt for us throughout its entire lifespan that went on 4 to 5 years even afterwards, and people are actually still finding stuff to this day. Do not follow today's trends. If DICE, EA, and the rest follow what other AAA titles are doing, it's not going to feel like Battlefield and stand out from the majority. Stay true to yourself and keep being yourself. You can also take this into all your lives, by the way, folks. If you keep the game true to its core, as Battlefield should, the game will stand out and people will want to play your game more because it doesn't feel like another AAA title or indie game out there. Include all features on day one. I don't think I need to go any further with this note, but a few comments to add with this topic is showing medics near, for example, removed AI optimization features that were added from previous titles and removed in 2042. Battlefield 2042 was very bare bones on day one compared to its previous installments. Even aim assist issues were a major thing ongoing 2042 for almost a year and a half. It led to console gamers having quite a bad taste in their mouth to your game's launch and how it felt. DICE, please have VoIP on day one for Battlefield 2025. The list goes on. VoIP is such a necessity in Battlefield. The list goes on, and another which I'm adding to its own category in the list of things to add to keep in Battlefield 2025. And another thing I'd like to add, which I'm adding to its own category in the list of things to add to keep in Battlefield 2025, is a scoreboard. DICE, please. Number 15. Spectator on day one would be awesome for people like me and other content creators for cinematics, for their montages and other social media reasons, along with for competitive esports side of things if the game goes that route. But for me, I need Spectator because I make music videos with a story, and Spectator mode helps with the cinematic scenes I record and make non-scripted throughout my videos for the only Battlefield moments I capture joining random servers. Number 16, last but most requested feature and staple to Battlefield. Bring classes back. DICE, please bring classes back and keep them. We didn't ask of you guys. We didn't ask of EA and DICE to remove the class system, but I feel like they wanted to try something new, but they were going the hero route, which Valorant, Apex Legends, Overwatch are doing. That was what I mentioned earlier. What Battlefield needs to not do is go off of other trends with what AAA titles are doing. EA is trying to find a business model that brings them more money. I get that. But if you want your game to prosper, you need to make it stand out and have its own identity. Something no other game has that people can say, hey, let's go play Battlefield because it doesn't feel like this other game. Whereas for 2042, I could say I could play 2042, but it feels more like this COD game. So we need to keep it as Assault, Engineer, Support, and Recon as from previous games. Battlefield 5 is an exception for this, to move Assault from previous games to Medic with SMGs. Alongside 2042 switching a few things up with having LMGs being the proficient weapon to use as Engineer. You didn't have to stick with LMGs, but it was preferred for its gun to be used efficiently. Eventually, the specialist system got converted into the classes, which I'm happy about for 2042, but we cannot do that anymore. We need to stick with classes. DICE, please. I love you guys, but please. Which I know we'll be getting for the next installment, mentioned from Vincent Pella in the IGN interview, where he talks about bringing Battlefield back to its core, bringing back classes and being Battlefield 3 and 4's era, bringing back features and everything else both games had to offer that made us love the Battlefield franchise so much and continue to play them to this day, 10 plus years later. I see on Steam charts the majority of these games being played with higher player counts after nearly a decade for some of the titles been launched. That says a lot with what your community loves and wants to see for your next Battlefield game. Destruction is key in Battlefield. That was a core part of Battlefield missing in 2042 and is needed to complete the new Battlefield game. That is all I want to mention for now for what we love to see for Battlefield 2025. Now, you've been wondering why I kept number 7 in the chart missing here. It's because I left 7 for you all to add your thoughts about what they should bring or add from previous Battlefield titles, or even add something new to the game to freshen up the game's formula and experience. So leave those awesome comments below for me to read and take into thought. I appreciate all the comments and thoughts you all have with the game we all love dearly, and the videos I make to entertain you all. It means a lot. I hope you all have a great day and stay nice to each other in the comments, and keep this space positive and happy as always. I love you all and rave on. Have a great week. Peace out.